A July loss has left firefighters, paramedics, and longtime TV fans heartbroken. Randolph Mantooth, the actor who made Johnny Gage a household name on Emergency, has died at 80. As tributes pour in from cast, crew, and first responders, let's take a look at the heartfelt reactions now emerging. The call came in on a Thursday. Not a call for Squad 51, not a call over a biophone to Rampart General, a real one from a hospice facility in Ventura, California. Mantooth died Thursday at a hospice facility in Ventura, California. His brother, Donald Mantooth, told The Hollywood Reporter he was 80 years old. His brother didn't sugarcoat it. Donald said Mantooth had been ill for a number of years and kept getting thinner and thinner. TMZ got more details straight from the family. Donald Mantooth told TMZ the actor died peacefully Thursday in a Ventura hospice surrounded by friends and family, after being sick for several years with a variety of cancers, starting with throat cancer. He battled them as best he could, but the toll it took on his body was just too much. His brother said that illness wasn't new. He had been diagnosed with cancer in 2015. For over a decade, he was fighting this quietly while still showing up at firehouses and EMS conferences across the country. That's the part that's hitting hardest for people in the fire and EMS world right now. He kept showing up for them even while he was sick. Within hours of the news breaking, the tributes started stacking up. The Los Angeles County Fire Department didn't treat this like a random celebrity death. They treated it like they'd lost one of their own. A spokesman for the Los Angeles County Fire Department said Mantooth will be remembered as a part of the legacy of the department and firefighters everywhere, with Fire Captain Aaron Caton saying Randolph Mantooth was the face of the department for an entire generation, and that talk to any fire buff of a certain age. Johnny Gage riding Squad 51 is the stuff of legend. The LA County Fire Museum posted too, and their language was personal, not corporate. The museum wrote that Mantooth was a great supporter of the Fire Museum and was an incredible friend to them. The department itself shared a tribute calling him a dear friend, adding that his memory and legacy as an integral part of the show's Squad 51 will live in their hearts and in their paramedic program. Then came the people who'd actually worked with him. Doug Wolfberg is an EMS attorney who spent decades in Mantooth's orbit through his advocacy work, and he didn't hold back on Facebook. "I'm gutted over the passing of Randolph Mantooth," he wrote, saying it was a privilege and an honor to have known Randy for over 25 years, to work with him on projects and share laughs, meals, and memorable times with him, calling him a true ambassador for EMS. And then there's the man who was there from day one, Kevin Tighe, who played Roy DeSoto opposite Mantooth's Johnny Gage for 6 seasons. Tighe wasn't some co-star who showed up, did his scenes, and left. Mantooth and Tighe remained close friends after the end of the show. In 1978, when Mantooth went home to find his ranch on fire, Tighe was already there, helping get the animals safely away from the flames. In 2002, Tighe served as Mantooth's best man for his wedding to actress Kristen Connors. Just last year, Tighe was already talking about what made that partnership work. In an interview that now reads like an early tribute, "We were both working-class kids on our first show," Tighe told USA Today, saying Mantooth had it down in terms of just being who he was in front of the camera. That's not a scripted eulogy line. That's a guy describing a friend he'd known for over 50 years. The family's own statement, released the day after the death was confirmed, leaned hard into the legacy piece rather than just grief. The family said Mantooth's role and the show changed the way first responders were seen on TV, explaining the series helped introduce the public to paramedics and emergency medicine, inspiring countless individuals to pursue careers in EMS and firefighting, and that its influence extended far beyond entertainment, contributing to greater recognition of emergency medical services throughout the country. Fans piled on, too, all over social media, in a way that showed just how deep this show cut into people's actual career choices. One person posted plainly online, remembering him as Rip Randolph Mantooth. Like many others, emergency spurred my interest in becoming a paramedic, while another wrote that if you were a kid in the 1970s, Saturday nights on NBC was must-watch TV, and his role in emergency started the careers of countless life-saving paramedics. A third fan put it just as simply, One of the big reasons I became an EMT and subsequently a paramedic was watching Randolph Mantooth as a small kid. Another ex-user said, "Others were more personal about what the show meant to their childhood." One person wrote, "Will always be the Squad 51 dude calling Rampart. Re-P Randolph Mantooth." Another said it felt like a little bit of their childhood died with him, remembering Emergency as mandatory Saturday night viewing, and that they'd owned the Gage and DeSoto action figures as a kid. So within about 24 hours of the news landing, you had the fire department calling him family, an EMS attorney calling himself gutted, his real-life screen partner's words from a year earlier reading like a tribute, and fans by the thousands saying this man quietly steered their entire career path. That's the reaction. Now let's get into who this guy actually was and why his death is landing this hard on an entire profession. To understand why fire departments across the country are grieving an actor, you have to go back to what television looked like before January 1972. Mantooth was born Randy DeRoy Mantooth on September 19, 1945 in Sacramento, California. He was the oldest of 4 children. His father was Cherokee and Seminole, while his mother was of German and English descent. Home was never really one place. The family moved frequently because of his father's construction engineering work. His dad, known as Buck, worked pipelines, and by his own count, Mantooth later claimed he lived in 24 different states by the time he turned 18 because his father worked as a pipeline construction engineer and the job required the family to constantly stay on the move. His mother, Sadie, waited tables to help keep things together. He talked about that upbringing candidly decades later, admitting that all that moving meant he never really put down roots with people his own age. Instead, as he put it himself, he spent a lot of that childhood living in his own head. Acting found him in Santa Barbara. He discovered his passion for acting through student productions while attending San Marcos High School, and after studying at Santa Barbara City College, he earned a scholarship to New York City's American Academy of Dramatic Arts, where he received the prestigious Charles Gallagher Award, one of the Academy's highest acting honors. It was there that Randy became Randolph. A stage name change meant to sound more serious, more leading man. The break came almost by accident. While starring in a production of Philadelphia, Here I Come, Mantooth was discovered by a Universal Studios talent agent and signed to a contract. Back in Los Angeles, he did the unglamorous grind every young contract player did. Bit parts, guest spots, building a resume. He built his resume with guest roles on Ironside, The Virginian, Marcus Welby, MD, and The Bold Ones, before landing his career-defining role in 1972 as paramedic John Gage on Emergency. The role almost went to someone with more experience, but a single scene changed everything. Producer Robert A. Senator spotted Mantooth playing a small courtroom breakdown scene opposite Hal Holbrook on The Bold Ones. And according to what Mantooth was told, Senator's reaction was immediate and decisive. As Mantooth remembered it, Senator turned to someone and said that was his Johnny Gage. There was just one problem. Paramedics, as a profession, barely existed. Mantooth himself admitted he had zero idea what he'd signed up for. "First thing I said was, 'What the hell's a paramedic?' he said in a TV Academy interview. Because at that time, there weren't paramedics. There were only 13 in all of California at that time, and nobody had ever heard of them before. That number is worth sitting with. 13 paramedics in the entire state of California. That's the world Emergency was walking into. When it debuted in January 1972, the show followed a firefighter-paramedic crew out of a fictional Station 51, based on the real Los Angeles County Fire Department. Mantooth's Johnny Gage and Kevin Teague's Roy DeSoto were the 2 paramedics at the center of it, working alongside firefighters played by Robert Fuller, Julie London, and Bobby Troop. The show was executive produced by Jack Webb and played like a fire department take on Dragnet, debuting as a mid-season replacement show in January 1972 and was shot in a near-documentary style, following the adventures and mundane downtime firehouse banter of Squad 51. Neither lead actor had any real medical background walking in, and the producers weren't interested in faking it. To train for their parts, Mantooth and T sat in on paramedic classes and rode out on extensive ride-alongs with the LA County Fire Department, with the producer wanting them to at least know the fundamentals so they'd look like they knew what they were doing on camera. Mantooth was always upfront that acting the part and being the part were two different things. He'd joke that unless you actually took the written course, you weren't a paramedic, though he'd still call 911 with the best of them if someone had a heart attack. That grounding mattered because the show's creator was obsessive about realism. Senator wanted the show to be funny, but told his actors that when the station alarm sounds, funny is left at the door. You are now a professional. And Mantooth said, "We never got away from that," adding that they never went home with Johnny Gage or Roy DeSoto. Nobody heard about Gage's backstory because who cared about that? It was about the job. Every rescue that made it to air had to have actually happened somewhere, pulled straight from real firefighters' logbooks. That obsession with accuracy is exactly why the show ended up doing something no medical drama before it had done. When it debuted, there were only 12 paramedic units operating anywhere in North America. According to the Los Angeles County Fire Museum, 8 of those 12 squads were located in Los Angeles County alone. By the time the show wrapped 6 seasons later, that number had exploded across the country. One memorial tribute laid out just how fast the shift happened. 12 paramedic units existed in North America in January 1972, when Mantooth first pulled on a rescue squad uniform for the cameras. And within 3 years of his debut as John Gage, 46 states had passed laws permitting paramedics to treat patients in the field, a shift fire service historians credit in part to the show he carried opposite Kevin Teague. Within a decade, more than half of the country lived within 10 minutes of a paramedic unit. There's even a detail buried in the character's own name that shows how tightly the show was tied to the real profession. Gage's surname was drawn from Jim Page, the Los Angeles County Battalion Chief, regarded as the father of the modern paramedic program. This wasn't a show borrowing the aesthetics of emergency medicine for drama. It was built from the ground up in collaboration with the people actually doing the job. So when the LA County Fire Department calls Mantooth the face of their organization for a generation, that's not hyperbole from a PR office. It's a literal description of what happened between 1972 and 1977. A TV actor became the public image of a profession that barely had a public image before him. That's the foundation. Now, let's get into what happened once the cameras stopped rolling. Because Mantooth's relationship with real first responders didn't end when the show got canceled. If anything, it's what he's remembered for even more. Most actors who land a defining role spend the rest of their careers trying to escape it. Mantooth ran straight at his... In 2012, Mantooth and Teague were honored by the Los Angeles Fire Department, which presented them with traditional white leather Cairns Chiefs helmets and named them honorary fire chiefs in recognition of their contributions to public awareness of emergency medicine and fire services. That's not a ceremonial nod to a celebrity. That's a fire department formally inducting 2 actors into their own honorary leadership ranks, decades after the cameras stopped rolling. He kept that connection alive for the rest of his life. Mantooth remained a lifelong advocate for firefighters, paramedics, and EMTs, making appearances across the country in support of first responders. One tribute noted just how relentless that schedule was. In a single year, he appeared at 24 venues across 18 states, according to EMS One, touring firehouses and EMS conferences as a spokesperson for the International Association of Firefighters and the International Association of Fire Chiefs. He wasn't just showing up for photo ops either. When he spoke to rooms full of firefighters, he pushed a message about the human side of the job, not the equipment. He told one audience of firefighters something that's been quoted back repeatedly since his death: the idea that to truly care for people, you have to show them you care. To look up from the equipment, hold that person's hand, and tell them with all the compassion in your heart that everything is going to be okay. Where that debt came from wasn't abstract for him. He'd survived a close call himself, having narrowly escaped death by carbon monoxide poisoning, and then seeing his sister saved following a car accident. He was often quoted as saying he felt a debt to the service. He talked about it in a TV Academy Foundation interview years back, and by all accounts, it wasn't a rehearsed answer. In that 2013 interview, he got visibly emotional discussing how he wanted to dedicate his life to firefighters and paramedics, out of gratitude for the lives they'd saved, including members of his own family. He put it even more plainly in another interview around the same time. "Do I respect paramedics? Do I respect firefighters?" he said. "There's a debt I owe them that I probably can't ever pay back, but I'm gonna try." That trying turned into decades of unpaid or barely paid ambassador work. He became a lifetime member of the National Association of Emergency Medical Technicians. He wasn't chasing a paycheck with any of this. He had a full acting career running in parallel the entire time, and the advocacy work was something he chose to keep doing on top of it. Year after year, long after any studio was paying him to promote a show. That advocacy reached its final form in a documentary he helped produce called Into the Unknown, alongside his old partner Kevin T and actor-turned-former FDNY firefighter Steve Buscemi. Most recently, he served as an executive producer of Into the Unknown, alongside fellow emergency star Kevin Teague and actor and former FDNY firefighter Steve Buscemi, with the feature-length documentary following paramedics, dispatchers, flight crews, and their families, offering an unfiltered look at the realities of modern EMS. Earlier this year, the filmmakers launched a Kickstarter campaign to help expand the film's distribution and bring its message about the challenges, sacrifices, and importance of EMS to a wider audience. He talked about the project in terms that made clear this wasn't a vanity credit. "My life was saved by 2 firefighter paramedics," Mantooth said recently. "My sister's life was saved by a paramedic and a flight nurse. They literally gave us our lives back, and yet I don't even know their names," adding that overworked, sometimes overlooked, and nearly always taken for granted. Paramedics are real-world heroes. His hope, he said, was that Into the Unknown would provide the public with an understanding of and appreciation for the critical role these individuals play. That project is now sitting unfinished in its rollout, with one of its 2 lead producers gone, which is part of why the response from the EMS world specifically has felt so raw. This wasn't a guy trading on nostalgia for convention appearances. He was actively building something new for the profession right up until the illness caught up with him. He also carried a piece of honor that fire service circles don't hand out lightly. One tribute noted he received the James O. Page Award, sitting among fire service honors, as recognition that Johnny Gage's actor did as much for the profession off-screen as the character had done on it. For an industry that's notoriously skeptical of Hollywood's version of their work, that's about as high a compliment as it gets. An actual award named for one of paramedicine's founding figures, given to the actor who played the fictional version of the job. None of this happened in isolation from his acting career either. He kept working steadily the entire time, away from firehouses. Mantooth had a genuinely long career on screen well beyond his 6 seasons on Emergency. He reprised Johnny Gage on other shows, including guest spots on Adam 12, and voiced the character in the Saturday morning cartoon Emergency +4. He guest starred on a run of major shows across decades: Dallas, Charlie's Angels, The Love Boat, LA Law, ER, Criminal Minds, and in one of his final credited roles, 2 episodes of Sons of Anarchy as a tribal chief presiding over a wedding. He also had a second full act in daytime television that ran for 2 decades, playing Clay Alden on Loving, Richard Halifax on General Hospital, and later stepping into As the World Turns and One Life to Live. That soap chapter alone earned him 4 Soap Opera Digest Award nominations, proof that even outside the fire service world, he built a real, lasting career. But every obituary, every tribute, every fan post from the last day kept circling back to the same 6 seasons and the same Silver Squad truck, because that's the role that turned into a life's mission. And that mission is exactly why the reactions pouring in aren't just sad to see a childhood actor go. They're coming from people whose actual jobs, actual careers, and in some cases, actual lives were shaped by what he did, both on that show and off it for the 50 years after. Now let's get into the specific voices reacting right now, the people who knew him best, and what they're actually saying in the wake of his death. Let's slow down on exactly who's spoken up, because the range of it says a lot about the size of what was lost. Start with the family, since they're the ones who confirmed the death and set the tone for how it would be talked about publicly. Their statement, released through outlets like NBC News, didn't dwell much on cause of death or timeline. It focused almost entirely on legacy. Beyond acting, Randy's bond with the emergency services community became one of the most meaningful parts of his life, Mantooth's family said, adding he dedicated himself to honoring firefighters and paramedics, ensuring that their courage, sacrifice, and humanity were recognized. They also gave a glimpse of who he was away from cameras and conferences entirely, the version of him his family actually lived with. Family members said Mantooth will be remembered for his sense of humor and his love of storytelling, saying he had a remarkable ability to share a story and find humor in everyday moments, and that he especially loved celebrating fiesta at his Santa Barbara home and gathering friends and family for backyard barbecues around the fire pit, where stories, laughter, and memories were shared late into the evening. That's a detail that matters, because it shows the public advocate and the private guy weren't two different people. Whether he was on a stage telling firefighters to hold a patient's hand, or in his own backyard telling a story around a fire pit, people describe the same instinct: connect with whoever's in front of him. He's survived by a small circle. Mantooth is survived by his wife Kristen and his siblings Donald and Tonya. Donald has been the one fielding most of the press calls, and it's his voice that's carried the practical details of his brother's final years: the diagnosis, the decline, the hospice. Then there's Kevin Teague, and his position in all of this is different from everyone else reacting. He's not a fan. He's not a fire captain who admired the character from a distance. He's the man who stood next to Mantooth in that fire truck in real life for over 50 years. Their bond went past the set. Teague was the one who showed up at Mantooth's burning ranch to help save the animals long after the show wrapped. He was the best man at Mantooth's wedding to Kristen, and he was still an active creative partner with him, right up until the end, co-producing Into the Unknown together. Teague's most recent public words about his old partner, given to USA Today before any of this, now read as the closest thing to a eulogy anyone's shared. He described the two of them as working-class kids getting their first real shot on the same show, and said Mantooth simply had it down. He knew exactly who he was in front of a camera, without pretense. That's the assessment of a man who spent 6 seasons, and then 5 more decades watching him work. Beyond the show's inner circle, the fire and EMS community's reaction has come in layers. Official statements, then individual voices, then the wider public. On the official side, the Los Angeles County Fire Department's tribute wasn't boilerplate. Fire Captain Aaron Caton's comment about him being the face of the department for a generation, and Johnny Gage Riding Squad 51 being the stuff of legend among fire buffs, is the kind of line you only get from someone who watched the show shape actual recruitment into the job. The LA County Fire Museum's message, calling him an incredible friend, suggests he wasn't a distant honorary figure to them. He showed up repeatedly, in person, for the institution that preserves the department's history. Doug Wolfberg's tribute stands out because he's not fire service or acting. He's an EMS attorney, someone who worked policy and legal issues around emergency medical services for decades. His comment that he'd known Mantooth for over 25 years, sharing lace, meals, and memorable times, shows how far Mantooth's advocacy reached beyond just ceremonial appearances. This was a guy who built actual, sustained friendships inside the industry he was representing, not just handshake photo ops at conventions. And then there's the layer of reaction that might matter most in terms of scale. Ordinary fans, specifically the ones who became paramedics and EMTs because of what they saw on that show as kids. Multiple people, independently, posted some version of the same sentiment in the hours after the news broke, that watching Mantooth as Johnny Gage is the specific reason they went into emergency medicine as a career. That's not nostalgia. That's someone tracing their entire professional life back to a TV show from the 1970s and crediting the actor by name. One fan's tribute captured the show's specific cultural footprint in a way that stuck with people online, remembering it as required Saturday night viewing, right down to owning the Gage and DeSoto action figures as a kid. Another distilled the whole thing down to a nickname that fans have clearly kept using for 50 years. The Squad 51 dude, still calling out to Rampart even now in a farewell post. Taken together. What you're looking at isn't a single reaction. It's 4 distinct communities responding to the same loss from 4 different angles. The family grieving a brother and husband who happen to have a public mission. The co-star mourning a 50-year friendship built on a fictional partnership that became a real one. The institutions, fire departments, museums, EMS, legal circles, treating him as one of their own rather than an outsider who played dress-up for 6 seasons. And then the fans, the largest group by far, who are using his death to publicly credit him with the actual direction their working lives took. That's a rare thing for any actor to pull off. Most people who play a profession on TV get thanked for entertainment. Mantooth is being thanked repeatedly for careers. So where does this leave things now, a few days out from the news breaking? The documentary is the most obvious loose thread. Into the Unknown was mid-rollout when Mantooth died. The Kickstarter campaign to widen its distribution had only recently launched, and Teague and Buscemi are now left carrying that project forward without one of its 2 lead voices. Whether it gets finished the way Mantooth envisioned it, or whether it becomes something closer to a tribute to him by default, isn't clear yet. What is clear is that the mission behind it, getting the public to actually see and understand what paramedics do, the same mission that drove his entire career after Emergency, doesn't go away with him. If anything, his death has already put a spotlight back on the project that it might not have gotten otherwise. The show itself remains what it's always been, a strange footnote in ratings history that turned into one of the most consequential dramas in television. The hour-long drama with comic elements never was a ratings hit, only denting the year-end primetime top 30 once in the 3-network universe. But it was solid counter-programming against its 8 p.m. Saturday competition of CBS All in the Family, and in its final 2 seasons, The Jeffersons. It didn't need to be a ratings giant to change how an entire country thought about emergency medicine. It just needed to run long enough and be accurate enough for real fire departments to notice. And they did. There's also a smaller, stranger piece of pop culture trivia that's been getting passed around since his death, proof of just how deep into the culture his name sank in the 1970s. During the show's run, the rock band The Tubes name-checked Mantooth in their song "What Do You Want From Life" from their 1975 debut album, with singer Fee Waybill rattling off a list of things a listener is supposedly entitled to as an American citizen. Among them, famously, was a personally autographed picture of Randy Mantooth. That's not the kind of detail that gets attached to a forgettable show. That's a level of household name recognition that most working actors never sniff. What happens next for the people who reacted is, in some ways, more telling than the reactions themselves. Kevin Teague now carries the Into the Unknown project and the memory of a friendship forward alone. The man who was there for the ranch fire, the wedding, the paramedic classes, and the last documentary they built together. The Los Angeles County Fire Department has said his legacy will live on specifically inside their paramedic program, not just in a plaque or a ceremony, but in the actual training pipeline that Mantooth's own on-screen work helped inspire in the first place. And the fans who say they became paramedics and EMTs because of Johnny Gage are, right now, the ones actually answering the calls that the show once dramatized on Saturday nights in the 1970s. That's the real shape of what's left behind. A show that started because a producer needed a face for a job nobody understood yet, an actor who took that job seriously enough to spend 50 years paying it back in person, at firehouses and conferences, and finally in a documentary he didn't live to see fully released. A real-life partnership with his co-star that outlasted the show by 5 decades and ended with them still working side by side. And a fire and EMS community right now, treating his death the way they'd treat losing one of their own, because in every way that mattered to them, he was. Randolph Mantooth is gone at 80. The tributes are still coming in, and the profession he spent half a century representing isn't done telling people what he meant to them. Sources: NBC News. Randolph Mantooth, who played medic on NBC's emergency series, dies at 80. https://www.nbcnews.com/news. News. Randolph Mantooth played medic NBC's emergency, dies 80. RECNA 404688. Variety. Randolph Mantooth dead. Emergency. Star was 80. https://variety.com/2026. Stevie News. Randolph Mantooth dead. Emergency. 1,236,806,971/TMZ. Emergency. Star Randolph Mantooth dead at 80. https://www.tmz.com/2026. 7 to Randolph Mantooth dead. The Hollywood Reporter. Randolph Mantooth. Firefighter paramedic Johnny Gage on emergency dies at 80. https://www.hollywoodreporter.com. Stevie TV News. Randolph Mantooth dead. Emergency. 1,236,644,221. TV Insider. Randolph Mantooth emergency and loving star dies at 80. https://www.tvinsider.com/1,274,911. Randolph Mantooth dead. Emergency. Loving deadline. Randolph Mantooth dead. Emergency. Star, who appeared on soap operas, was 80. https://deadline.com/2026. 7 Randolph Mantooth dead. Emergency. 1,236,979,651. CBR. Randolph Mantooth emergency. Star dies at 80. https://www.cbr.com. Randolph Mantooth dead. Wikipedia. Randolph Mantooth. https://in-nwikipedial.org. Wikipedia. We. Randolph Mantooth. EMS 1. Who was Randolph Mantooth? 5 things to know about the emergency star. https://www.ms1.com/mvacancy articles. 5 things to know about Randolph Mantooth. NQCYLMBGV2YAMJ1S/Fire Rescue 1 emergency. Star. Longtime EMS advocate Randolph Mantooth dies. https://www.firerescue1.com/entertainment. Emergency star. Longtime EMS advocate Randolph Mantooth dies. GME emergency. Star Randy Mantooth passes away. https://www.gms.com/immanagement. Emergency. Star Randy Mantooth passes away. Spokesman review. Emergency. Star Randolph Mantooth dies at 80. https://www.spokesman.com. Stories 2026. Jewel/tense. Emergency. Star Randolph Mantooth dies at 80. Primaire. Who was Randolph Mantooth? Beloved emergency actor dies at 80. https://www.primitimer.com. News. LA. Hose. Randolph Mantooth beloved emergency actor dies at 80 after prolonged illness. Primitimer. General Hospital star Randolph Mantooth passes away at 80. https://www.primitimer.com. Secret Areas. General Hospital star Randolph Mantooth passes away at 80. Yahoo Entertainment emergency. Star Randolph Mantooth dead at 80. https://www.uo.com. Entertainment's TV articles. Emergency. Star Randolph Mantooth dead. 224,354,235.html. Memory Tree. Randolph Mantooth Memorial. https://memorytree.com/memorytree.com/